Report from Santa Fe is made possible in part by grants from the members of the National Education Association of New Mexico, an organization of professionals who believe that investing in public education is an investment in our state's economic future, and by a grant from the Healy Foundation, Taos, New Mexico.
Hello, I'm Lorene Mills, and welcome to Report from Santa Fe. Today we're doing a show about one of my favorite things with artist John Pugh. Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
Well, I've been a fan of yours for years. You are a world-renowned artist with 250 murals around the world in New York, Miami, San Francisco, Taiwan, New Zealand, all over the world. I'll bet a lot of our audience has seen your work without knowing who you are. So you were specialized in what's called trompe l'oeil, which is French for?
It's French for trick of the eye. And yeah, this is kind of a genre. A lot of it's been done through history, but not on the public art level quite so much. Yes, that's...
So it started in Greece, and we know about some of the famous ones
Way
from the
back.
Middle Ages and the Renaissance. And now, Facebook is full of these things, and people are so astonished. And so I've asked you here first to tell me what drew you to this kind of work.
I kind of just stumbled into it because from as early as I can remember, I've done painting. And in high school, in college, I did some architectural drafting, but I was always painting. I was a painting major. And it wasn't until this first project that I did at the entrance of California State University, Chico, that I kind of combined this architectural element with my painting. Until that point, it was more surreal and different genres.
Well, let's look at that first painting.
Okay, good.
I mean, that first mural.
All right.
And then I want to get one thing I really want you to tell us before we're done is how this works. Why are we so convinced it's totally real?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's go with the first one that you did, which was on the University of California Chico campus.
Right.
Okay. And we have some pictures that you can show us the wall beforehand.
Okay.
Plain old building.
Oh,
You
yeah.
take
So
it.
here's the wall ahead of time.
Uh-huh.
As a trompe l'oeil artist, I have to mention this. It's always important to pick a wall that naturally has a corridor of pedestrians or auto traffic going into it so that the perspective works. If you're really close to it and you're walking next to it, it's going to fall apart. So the impact corridor is really important. And this is on the entrance to Chico State University from the downtown, so it's a really good spot. There's even a stop sign across the wall there. And then you can see the different phases of creating the piece. There's a cartoon and painting in, blocking in, more blocking in. I usually work from background to foreground, but with murals, it's really important to work from top to bottom, too, because I don't want to drip on my stuff. And here's the finished piece. And that's one thing really funny about this project. There was a lady that was working across the street in an office, and she saw the scaffold go up, the mural painted, and then I took the scaffold down, and she still, after all of that, she called the administration building and said, "When are you guys going to fix that wall?"
Oh, no.
There's a lot of funny incidents like that. But this is one of my favorite projects. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I thought I was going to do something with the Greek Academe. And then I had these dreams where the wall was breaking open to reveal the Academe inside. And to my knowledge, I'm the first guy that ever did a broken hole type illusion. And this is kind of all where it started, from a dream before I did this project. So.
And I just want to draw people's attention to this book, The Murals of John Pugh. And there is that very mural on the cover. And this is full of many, many murals, some of which we'll get to talk about today. There's too many for us to talk about. But so how does this work? We see ones on pavements that look like it's a chasm, you're going to fall to your doom. People are actually afraid, even though they know it's a pavement. It's a street. There is not a chasm there. People are afraid to even put their foot there. Why is this so
I don't know if they're afraid to. The one thing about the chalk drawings, and I have to say this in my defense, but the chalk drawings look really effective from a certain camera angle. And if you walk around this thing that's all stretched out to a point where it's being shot, you'll get it. And otherwise, it doesn't do that,
And is that a function of
Fooling.
dimensionality? Because it's definitely flat and on the ground, whereas you get the whole elevation of a whole wall.
And that goes back to this whole thing about this long illusion corridor where people are naturally, the flow of traffic or pedestrians are in this corridor going toward the wall. There they get the experience, and I've heard it over and over again from people that have come up to me. I thought that was real. They really get that sensation of being fooled first, and then they discover that it's flat. So it's kind of a reverse thing from the chalk thing. So.
Now, you, there's another very famous one that you did. We all know the Eagles song, Standing on the Corner in Winslow, Arizona. So you did a fantastic mural there with all the elements of the song. Didn't even the Eagles help underwrite
One of the
this?
members paid for one of the checks. It was I think actually it was an international competition. And
Oh, it was a competition.
I loved it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. So let's talk a little about this one, and I'm sorry that everyone will now be singing this song.
That's okay.
Yeah. So
Standing on the
you
corner.
took, what was it? What kind of wall was it? And how did...
It was a brick kind of damaged wall. And
Was this another... There was a competition again, right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
And, well, the first one wasn't. The Taylor Hall wasn't, but this one was.
Yeah.
So they had this wall, and so I wanted to create something that would be an effective illusion. And one thing that kind of came up, I think of Hotel California, and then there's the old Winslow sign on it, if you're looking at the images, and a feeling of early 60s when the song was first written by Jackson Browne. And then the windows and the reflections in the windows, and the bottom windows, there is reflected a girl, my lord, in a flatbed Ford slowing down to take a look at me. And I'm the viewer looking at the window and seeing that reflection. Even on the license plate, it's got, I got 7 women on my mind in letters, the acronym. And then later on, come on, baby, I know your sweet love is going to save me. They're up in the window, and I try to get this kind of story going with the piece, and the eagle might remind you of a particular rock band.
Yes. What I love about that shot is the reflection in those big fake glass mirrors. Windows. They look absolutely like windows. The whole thing, again, tricks me.
Yeah, I try to go within a parameter where there's no movement, there's no outdoor sky and distance, which would break the illusion up to get that kind of depth of field. Something that could happen in reality, and then I can start playing with time elements and concepts within the project.
Now, one of your, well, you have so many stunning ones, but let's talk a little about the one in Hawaii and talk about the contest, the competition.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
and then this one you have documented almost every step of the way, because two things I want people to understand how it goes from being an industrial wall to this work of art. And then a little bit later, we'll go to in small, how in some of those details do you convince us that this is 3-dimensional instead of 2-dimensional? So, but let's take some time and go through the Hawaii one. What was the name of the project?
Oh, I named it Mana Nalu, which is good energy, or good energy wave. Simple Hawaiian.
And what was the request for proposals, or what was the contest?
So there was an international competition, and I submitted some ideas to them, and they really liked my work. So they brought me over there, and I met with a kapuna, some spiritual elders, especially one in particular, and I wanted to get it brought into the culture, into the roots of Hawaii, some of its history and some of the spiritual things. And I spent a week with this guy, and we went to different sites, learned about the tarot roots and a lot of different aspects of the Hawaiian culture. It was beautiful. Their culture is all about love and about giving. And so I came up with this wave thing that felt like Hawaii, but it was instead of a real wave, it looks like a giant glass monumental wave. I could talk more about the process first. And I wanted to use Queen Liliuokalani, who is the last reigning monarch of Hawaii before the U.S. took statehood. And she was very gracious, and she yielded to the United States, and she did things like protect future generations of Hawaiian children. They had school and they had family, ohana, and I think she's been kind of under-recognized in Hawaii. They have big statues of King Kamehameha and Duke Kahanamoku, but I think because she was the last one, the U.S. maybe has kind of put her behind the courthouse and everything. And so I wanted to do a 50-foot version of her. And part of my journey with the spiritual leader, advisor guy, was to go to Queen Liliuokalani's tomb and ask for permission. And we had Hawaiians with us, and we had conch shells and garbs. And I asked for permission, and I got this great wave of yes, that mana. And they just wanted to make sure that the locals would say, who's this white guy, this Holly, painting this mural? And I had the correct response because I asked permission. And in the end, they had this big celebration with all these Hawaiian singers and a couple different ministers there. And this woman who was the director of the Queen Liliuokalani Children's Foundation came up to me, and she had tears in her eyes. And she put this necklace around me, and she just looked into my eyes and said, I'm so glad you did this. And this necklace was carved bone that she carved for me. And it was this incredible connection, this back door to the culture. I was being brought into the fold. And I think that the thing I like most about painting these murals is that the Cultural Commission, the Art Commission, whoever is commissioned me to paint these things, they want to get me into the back door. They want to get me into the roots of their culture, their spiritual heritage. And after a while, after I do this project and I work with the Maori in New Zealand or the Hawaiians here in Hawaii, I'm feeling really connected, and it's this great, almost spiritual connection, this experience of really exploring different parts of the world with this public art deal, and getting a back door. Unlike a tourist, I'm really being brought into it. So I just love that part. That's my favorite part of this whole thing.
Well, tell us the actual, a little bit of the process, because you've got the wall. What was the size of the wall? What building was it?
It's, I think they named it after the mural, actually. Yeah. And it's on Queen Street in Kamakee in Honolulu. So I have pictures here. One picture is preparing the material in my studio. It's an acrylic sheeting that I then will roll up and install on location with acrylic gel, so it becomes on a molecular level like I painted it on location to begin with. And yet I'm able to do it in my large studio without traveling around the world. Vagabond. So this one shot is we're preparing the material. Now the second shot is I've got it up in my studio where I can paint it in my studio. You can see all the blue tape and everything. And then we get to Hawaii, to the blank wall, and you can see that we're starting to roll this out and wallpaper to the wall with the acrylic gel. A couple layers, and we've double cut it just like wallpaper, and eventually I've got most of the piece up. It's kind of patchy because I had to do this in a couple different places. I couldn't fit it all into my studio. 50 feet high by 120 feet wide.
My goodness.
And we go along here. This mural, the wave itself, this is something that I do, and I'm not sure if many other muralists do it, but I use glazes a lot. This wave has probably, in some places, 30 coats of glazes, so the light can kind of go through it, and it has this kind of there's
translucent.
There's no way I could get some of these deep, brilliant kind of effects with color without the glazing, and so I'm kind of doomed to it now. And sometimes it takes me a lot longer because I have to layer all these glazes on it, and then of course the finished product to look like a giant monumental wave with Queen Liliuokalani very present there, and Duke Kahanamoku surfing the wave and the children at the bottom. And I even used the air conditioner surround on the top to kind of pretend like that's a skylight opening and there's light coming from behind the wave. And the row of windows to the right and left are flat. Everything about this wall is flat, including the staircase, except for the very right side fire escape, which comes out 3 feet. But I utilize that too on the left tower. So really playing with the architecture. And
so one thing you've got to close up is the actual crest of the wave, that the white sea foam sort of. How did you get that to look so sea foamy?
Hopefully it looks like a glass wave with glass sea foam, but I actually commissioned an artist to do a glass wave that I could use for a model, an observation, to get the effect. And on the glass wave itself, I put it together with darks and lights, but the real trick here is all the glazing, all the little colors, all the hue shifts that happen with these transparent glazes to give it presence. I think the glazing and the color and the shifting on objects with hue shifts are the things that give the piece. I think of color as the emotion and the darks and lights as the cerebral aspect. And the colors give it music, give it emotion, give it presence that's so important, so subtle. I don't think a lot of people understand how important colors are to give things presence. I could say one more thing about that, too. It's things that happen in shadows, things that happen with those color shifts, things that happen with contrast pulling forward. There's a lot of little things that happen in reality, blurring of shadow, the deepening of shadows as they go behind the objects that's cast in it, and it gets warmer. I don't want to get into tons of detail, but it's the very subtle things about in reality that make these things work. And they're not necessarily consciously viewed things. It's the things that the viewer can't see, the things that happen in reality that I'm becoming more and more aware of are the things that make the projects really present and real.
So, and we're speaking today with John Pugh, a world-renowned muralist and trompe l'oeil artist. So I have been mystified for so long. Why do these fake me out so much? Why am I have to touch it to be sure it's not 3D. And one of the things you're saying is, in effect, as we view our reality, there's a lot that we just are on unconscious level, information that we're taking in that never registers.
Yeah, most people aren't going to sit there and look at a water drop for an hour to figure out how it works.
Yes, exactly. But you, as an artist, kind of can break down that data into pieces that you can use and put in there, which we recognize unconsciously. That's the way.
Right. It gets past those centuries in the brain that tells us what's real and what's not. The perspective's important too. Like I'm creating things that I talked about that impact the illusion corridor. The perspective has to be in a way such that if this thing did exist in reality, it's correct perspective. And then I'm working life size. There's nothing different scaled about it. So, and with the shadowing into these rooms or whatever it is I'm doing, if it existed, it would look somewhat like that from those perspective corridors.
So we've been talking about the grand scale of murals, a huge side of a building, but I think you have for us some small close-ups of some of the details that you can tell us what you've done to make them look so real to us.
Well, that might take a while. But
well, okay. Well.
There's one with the flower pots on the windowsill, and the only thing that's real in this, that has depth in this image, is the bottom right corner. That's about a half an inch thick there as it goes to the real wall. Mimicking things and being aware of them life size and what they would be doing on the shelf, what the right perspective is, the color shifts, everything about this piece is probably very similar to what it would be like if it was there. So, that's kind of the bottom line. Here's another one. I did it for a woman in Atherton. And, there's a good story about this.
Yeah.
She had some complaints at the end. She wasn't complaining that people were trying to pick up the wine glass, but she was complaining that people were trying to set their wine glass down next to it.
So it was a ledge with a painted...
There's no ledge.
Oh, yeah. It appeared to be a ledge
right,
with it appeared that a wine glass was sitting on it. So other people just go and...
And it was right above her spa, and the glass would break and fall into the spa. I kind of like that, though.
I like that. So, and there's another one. I think you've got the one of the woman reading
this
the book.
Is part of a mural.
Tell me about that story.
She's reading a book, and she's kind of in this cafe that's an homage to French art, and you can see the sculpture that she's kind of juxtaposed from. I've really enjoyed painting that sculpture, too, because I think this is a Mayol sculpture, French artist. And within the sculpture itself, I think there's a lot of, I was talking about color shifts. You can look at her leg that's facing us, the level leg, And you can see the series of color shifts that reflecting the sky from the skylight, the light in the room. And then on the bottom of her leg, there's warm light coming up from the floor. And I think going back to even when we were cavemen, we viewed reality with these kind of color shifts, these happenings in nature. And I think on a very subtle level, that gives that piece a lot of presence. And the Monet painting behind her even heightens the sense of illusion. And even on the marble block pedestal, you can see kind of a yellow, blue, and red relationship between the sides. Those are the things that give it more presence. Those are the things that make it look like something other than plaster of Paris. It's, subtle color shifts.
You have a story about somebody who saw the woman reading?
Oh, yeah. You read that, huh?
Yeah.
There was this guy that was in the coffee shop, and he was trying to talk to her, which is not the most, I mean, that isn't uncommon. That's happened with a lot of my figures that are out in front of the mural, and they're kind of the viewer. Then they realize that they're not real. But, of course, she didn't talk to him, and then he went to the management, or the manager that was working at the coffee shop, says, what is with that woman? She just, I keep trying to talk to her, and she just is giving me the silent treatment. And he was
Stony
truly
silence.
irritated. Yeah. Because it looks like she's reading, and there's no implied movement, like she's about to move, and it worked. So I think a lot of people do get embarrassed, but I also think that with these illusions, the next piece is a marble sculpture. It's actually Rodin's homage to Victor Hugo. You can see the color shifts in the marble too. But one thing I was going to say about this illusion thing is I love using this vehicle, this illusion thing. And to me, it's not the art and the end in itself, but it's a great public communications form that I think everyone likes to see, visually tricked. And once they're tricked and they get a little embarrassed, they go, "Oh my God, I thought that was real. Do I need to be checked for Alzheimer's or something like that?"
Yeah.
Then you go, "Oh, okay, that's the nature of this artwork." That kind of trick and that kind of connection, I think people find delight in. And then they are invited into the piece more, where they might see some breadcrumbs that are intentional things to see that are concept related or narrative related, and then they start following the breadcrumbs into the piece and start picking up on things that are part of the story, part of the heritage, multidimensional narrative things that create a concept. I'm all for kind of using an out of the box kind of way of talking about history or showing about the heritage or about what makes this place special, but creating a sense of place. And I think this illusion experience, then the breadcrumbs of the concept, there's time that could be spent with the mural, and people get it, and they're more apt to look at this type of thing if it's an illusion and it's kind of iconic or dynamic, and so it's worked very well for me as a vehicle. But I do like getting into the concept and getting poetic about the place I'm in.
Absolutely, but let me ask you this. We've seen specific examples in specific places where you've been called forth to create that world and the resonances, the poetry of it. But if you were creating anywhere on earth, any particular image, do you have in your mind the grand image that you would love to do?
Oh, well, I've done a few of them already, I think.
Yes, good.
But I have to say that New Mexico is a place that northern New Mexico in particular, is a place I'm drawn to, and I thought it would be kind of fun to get some Spalding, some rock type things, and paint kind of an illusionary Mesa Verde or something like that. So I'm not just integrating with the architecture, which is really important. That's usually what I respond to.
Yeah.
But I'm responding to a wall in nature that's on a rock, and then make it look like that's going in. I mean, I think that would be a real fun to do, a trompe l'oeil Mesa Verde.
Oh, it would. Well,
my trompe l'oeil Mount Rushmore kind of thing.
Well, I want to mention that you are here in Santa Fe because you've been working with George Martin and the Jean Cocteau Cinema to paint the entire back wall with a trompe l'oeil painting of can you say the subject?
Sure.
It hasn't been unveiled yet, but we will try to get some pictures of it to put in. So you chose maybe a motif of
Dragons.
dragons.
And they're kind of reawakening. They're teenage Santa Fe dragons, actually.
Ah.
I wanted to really, again, try to get a sense of place and respond to what George writes about. And I thought dragons was a great thing. But these teenage dragons, which aren't fully matured yet, are like reawakening. Like the Thunderbird is reawakening. And I think that kind of parallels
A lot of Native
some stuff that's going on,
mythology,
Native
you bet.
American, and there's two dragons. One's Tabor. He's the left one. He's the male, and then there's Penelope Penny. That's on the right. Penny is a turquoise mural, a dragon with lightning bolts as patterns on the back, and Tabor is the land, the red rock, and the rivers. So I'm covering the four elements with the red rock, like rivers, a Rio Grande type river, and then the night sky, the air, and the lightning, fire. And the colors are reminiscent of turquoise, this red rock kind of feeling of Santa Fe, and the aqua. Turquoise,
Yes, of course.
It has to be turquoise.
Yes.
That has a lot of
It's
significance.
our state stone.
Too. Yeah.
Well, I'm happy that is what has brought you here. I was very excited because I've followed your work for a long time. I'm afraid we've run out of time. I want to say, people
Really?
who love this, here is the book, The Murals of John Pugh. Our guest today is extraordinary artist John Pugh. Thank you for joining us.
It's been my pleasure.
And I'm Lorene Mills. I'd like to thank you, our audience, for being with us today on Report from Santa Fe. We'll see you next week.
Past archival programs of Report from Santa Fe are available at the website reportfromsantafe.com. If you have questions or comments, please email info@reportfromsantafe.com. Report from Santa Fe is made possible in part by grants from the members of the National Education Association of New Mexico, an organization of professionals who believe that investing in public education is an investment in our state's economic future, and by a grant from the Healy Foundation, Taos, New Mexico.